What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the fuck?
What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn YouTube shit. Hey man, say man, we are Listen to me, turn. Take the motherfucking day. Drinking outside, big crip and the gas shooting outside shit. 3 pounds down, free Congo, rushing your day, and Texas, stand the fuck up. Each day, do that be a better version of yourself. Never let somebody bring you down, always straight back. Never let somebody tell you you are. Also, never put yourself in a position you don't belong. Let's stay humble. Let's be a revolution on this movement. Keep your way first. Come to the Black Hebrew Israelite. As a real Jew, we out you. Alright, cool. Today, the motherfucking day. Shooting outside, big crip and the gas shooting outside shit, man. Turn up. Nigga, go. Bro. This shit wild. You know what I'm saying? When you get into the music industry, the movie industry, the celeb industry, man, you know, you run around into like people that you grew up looking at, you know? And that, I guess that's why the people be saying, man, when you see a person that you always fuck with, sometimes you don't want to meet that person because it might be a letdown. You know, I feel like, bro, sometimes people do get put into an uncomfortable situation to where it shows who they made of. It's like getting thrown into the fire, and you know, you gonna see what come out of it. But like I tell y'all, man, just be careful out here on these streets in celebrity business, any type of scenery. So we got Will Smith, and I guess he had this client, like he hired a violinist to go with him on his concerts, crib, and they were trying to say that they tried to essay him, nicknamed Joseph, some shit. And when they found out that he wasn't going, they fired him because he came to his complain about people leaving like weird supplies in his room to like get down and freaky. And allegedly they said that he wasn't going for it, and he trying to sue Will Smith, but we don't know Will Smith behind it or anybody could be behind it. So Will Smith allegedly might be going against the suit, so we finna see what's going on, and they might try to sue him. The dude suing Will Smith. Shout out to Shackleford Claire's 95. Will Smith sued over allegation of grooming. Dang, bro, what's really going on? Man, I knew some shit was coming out when that freaky ass lawsuit came out about people was talking about he was hitting his best friend or something, and he was trying to get the dude to do some freaky shit, and Man, I tell y'all, man, them Diddy parties.
A violinist is suing Will Smith, claiming retaliation after he alleges that he was fired for reporting sexual harassment while on tour with Smith. Brian King Joseph filed the lawsuit.
That's why everybody said all the
this week,
was hired
accusing
because
Smith
of bullshit.
of deliberately grooming him for sexual exploitation.
This is the story of Brian King Joseph, a 33-year-old electric violinist who placed third on America's Got Talent, and how his dream job touring with Will Smith allegedly turned into a nightmare that ended in a lawsuit. On December 30th, 2025, Joseph filed a civil lawsuit in Los Angeles County Superior Court against Will Smith and his management company, Trayball Studios Management, alleging sexual harassment, retaliation, and wrongful termination. The claims center on a bizarre hotel room intrusion in Las Vegas and what Joseph says happened when he reported it. Will Smith's attorney has categorically denied all the allegations, calling them false, baseless, and reckless. So what exactly is Brian King Joseph claiming happened, and what does the evidence actually show? Let's break down everything we know about this case. Before we get into the lawsuit itself, you need to understand who Brian King Joseph is, because this isn't some unknown musician making accusations against a celebrity. This is someone many of you probably remember.
Will Smith is facing legal troubles. Musician Brian King Joseph is accusing the actor and his management company of wrongful termination and retaliation, according to a lawsuit obtained by NBC News and People.
Brian King Joseph is a 33-year-old electric violinist from Washington, D.C. Back in 2012, he received a full presidential scholarship to Berklee College of Music, which is one of the most prestigious music schools in the country. But he had to withdraw after being diagnosed with a neuropathy disorder that affects his nervous system. Despite that setback, Joseph taught himself to play and produce music. He became known for blending classical violin with electronic and pop music, creating viral covers of songs by Coldplay, Kanye West, and Fall Out Boy. His YouTube videos have accumulated over 15 million views, but his big break came in 2018 when he appeared on season 13 of America's Got Talent. He made it all the way to the finals, finishing in 3rd place. During his run on the show, he even performed a duet with the famous violinist Lindsey Sterling. After his audition, Judge Heidi Klum was so moved that she gave him an emotional hug and kiss on the cheek. He later appeared on AGT The Champions 2, though he was eliminated in the preliminaries. So this is an established performer with a significant public profile. And in November 2024, he got what seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. According to the lawsuit, Will Smith hired Brian King Joseph in November 2024 to perform at a show in San Diego.
In the court docs filed by Joseph with the Los Angeles County Superior Court December 30th, the professional violinist claims Smith and Treyball Studios Management Inc. retaliated against him and ultimately fired him after he reported being the victim of sexual harassment while working on Smith's Based on a True Story 2025 global tour.
Joseph had auditioned at Smith's home, and apparently Smith was impressed enough to bring him on board. That first performance took place around December 16, 2024 at the Observatory North Park in San Diego. And after that show, Joseph claims Smith invited him to join his Based on a True Story 2025 tour and promised him a role playing on Smith's upcoming album. Now, for context, this was a significant moment for Will Smith, too. This was his first full-length studio album in 20 years, since 2005. Smith was mounting a major comeback in the music world, and being part of that tour would have been a career-defining opportunity for any musician. The tour was set to kick off officially in June 2025 at the Mawazine Festival in Rabat, Morocco, and would run through the United States, Europe, and the United Kingdom. According to the lawsuit, as Joseph became part of Smith's inner circle, the two allegedly began spending additional time alone. Joseph claims that during this period, Smith told him, quote, "You and I have such a special connection that I don't have with anyone else." The lawsuit describes these statements as unusually intimate. Joseph's legal team characterizes this as the beginning of what they call a pattern of deliberate grooming and priming for, quote, further sexual exploitation.
In the lawsuit, Joseph states that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air alone was, quote, deliberately grooming and priming him for further sexual exploitation. The complaint also details an alleged hotel intrusion in March 2025.
Now, I want to be very clear here. These are allegations from a lawsuit. Will Smith's attorney has categorically denied all of these claims. No criminal charges have been filed, and nothing has been proven in court. But let's continue with what the lawsuit alleges happened next. The central event of this entire lawsuit allegedly occurred on or around March 20th, 2025 in Las Vegas. Will Smith was performing at the House of Blues at Mandalay Bay that night. According to the complaint, earlier that day, Joseph's bag went missing. This bag contained his hotel room key. The lawsuit states that the bag was in a van used by cast and crew members, and it was missing for several hours before management returned it to him. That detail becomes important for what allegedly happened next. The lawsuit claims that around 11 p.m. that night, Joseph returned to his hotel room and discovered evidence that someone had entered without forced entry. And here's where the story gets strange. According to the complaint, Joseph found a collection of items in his room that didn't belong to him. These included a handwritten note, wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, an earring, HIV medication with another person's name on it, and hospital discharge paperwork belonging to someone Joseph didn't know.
Joseph says the two began spending time alone together during Smith's tour, and he says Smith allegedly told him that they had a, quote, special connection. It also details an alleged traumatic series of events, that's a quote, including Joseph finding that someone had allegedly entered his hotel room while he was not there.
Taxes, one written note that's perhaps the most disturbing element of this story. According to the lawsuit, the note read, "Brian, I'll be back no later 5:30, just us, with a drawn heart, signed Stone F." The lawsuit states that Joseph, quote, feared that an unknown individual would soon return to his room to engage in sexual acts with plaintiff. Now, who is Stone F? That's one of the biggest unanswered questions in this entire case. The lawsuit doesn't explain who this person is. News reports haven't been able to identify them. The identity of Stone F remains completely unexplained. According to the lawsuit, Joseph immediately reported the incident. He contacted hotel security, took photos of the items, and requested a room change. He also called the police non-emergency line and reported the incident to Will Smith's representatives. Hotel security allegedly confirmed that there was no forced entry into the room. The lawsuit argues that this means only members of Smith's management team, who had booked the accommodations through Trayball Studios management, would have had access to Joseph's room. The complaint does not directly accuse Will Smith of entering the hotel room, but it connects these circumstances to what it calls a pattern of predatory behavior and alleges that Smith was behind the alleged grooming.
Where Joseph says he discovered evidence, quote, of a sexual threat of violence in his Las Vegas hotel room. The musician alleges that just days after reporting the incident, a rep for Smith accused him of lying and terminated him.
What allegedly happened next is the heart of the retaliation claim. According to the lawsuit, approximately 4 days after Joseph reported the hotel incident, he received a phone call from Tim Miller, who is described as a member of Smith's management team. The lawsuit claims that Miller accused Joseph of fabricating the entire incident. According to the complaint, Miller allegedly said, quote, "Everyone is telling me that what happened to you is a lie, nothing happened, and you made the whole thing up. So tell me, why did you lie and make this up?" Joseph was then allegedly told that the tour was moving in a different direction and was terminated. The lawsuit points out that shortly after Joseph was fired, another violinist was hired to replace him.
Damn.
Joseph's legal team argues this proves the stated reason for his termination was, quote, pretextual, meaning it was just an excuse to cover up the real reason he was let go.
Let him go.
To summarize the timeline, Joseph was hired in November 2024. He performed his first show with Smith around December 16, 2024. The hotel incident allegedly occurred around March 20th, 2025. And approximately 4 days later, he was terminated. His employment lasted roughly 4 to 5 months. Will Smith's album, based on a true story, was released on March 28, 2025, just days after Joseph's alleged firing.
After reporting the incident to police, he alleges a representative for Smith accused him of lying and fired him. Smith denies these allegations. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz joins us now. Liz, this is all new. What else are we learning about these allegations, including the alleged intrusion?
The tour officially kicked off in June 2025 and ran through September, traveling through Morocco, the United States, Europe, and the United Kingdom. Brian King Joseph was not part of it. For months after his alleged termination, Joseph remained silent publicly. But on December 25th, 2025, Christmas Day, he posted a video on Instagram that hinted at what had happened without naming names.
Rick Ross.
In that video, Joseph said, quote, "Earlier this year, I was hired to be a performer on a major tour with somebody who was huge in the industry." He continued, quote, "Getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that simply for reporting sexual misconduct or safety threats at work is not okay." And then he added something that suggests he sees himself as part of a larger movement. He said, quote, "And I know that there's a lot of other people out there who have been afraid to speak up, and I understand. And if that's you, I see you." 5 days later, on December 30th, 2025, the lawsuit was filed. So, what exactly is the lawsuit alleging? Let's break down the legal claims. The complaint was filed in Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles. The defendants named are Willard Carroll Smith II, which is Will Smith's full legal name, and Trayball Studios Management, Inc., which is Smith's management and production company. Brian King Joseph is represented by attorney Jonathan J. Delshad. The lawsuit alleges sexual harassment, retaliation, and wrongful termination. It claims that Will Smith engaged in, quote, "deliberate grooming and priming" of Joseph for further sexual exploitation. From the lawsuit, the facts strongly suggest that defendant Willard Carroll Smith II was deliberately grooming and priming Mr. Joseph for further sexual exploitation. The sequence of events, Smith's prior statements to plaintiff, and the circumstances of the hotel intrusion all point to a pattern of predatory behavior rather than an isolated incident. The complaint does not specify a dollar amount for damages. Instead, it requests that damages be determined by a jury.
Yeah, Kate, so according to the complaint, this all happened in March of last year while the Violinist was on tour with Will Smith for Smith's global tour for his latest album based on a true story.
The relief sought includes compensatory damages, punitive damages, attorney's fees, and injunctive relief. The lawsuit claims Joseph suffered severe emotional distress, economic loss, reputational
all these
harm,
motherfucking
lost wages,
billionaires,
PTSD,
millionaires
and what it
be getting hit
describes
up with
as
this
physiological
zesty
damage from
lawsuits,
stress.
nigga.
Will Smith's response came quickly. On January 1st, 2026, Smith's attorney, Alan B. Grodsky, issued a public statement categorically denying all allegations. The statement read, quote, "Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and to ensure that the truth is brought to light." That's a strong denial. The use of the word reckless suggests the defense may be considering their own legal action against Joseph for making what they claim are false accusations. Joseph's attorney, Jonathan Delshad, spoke to Newsweek about the case. He said, quote, "My client, Brian King Joseph, is a former America's Got Talent star, violinist who was hired by Will Smith to go on tour with Smith for his new album. There is a lot of information that will come out as part of the litigation process that we are not able to share at this time. Brian was very close with Smith prior to the termination and was headlined in one of the concerts." That last part is interesting. There is a lot of information that will come out as part of the litigation process that we are not able to share at this time. That suggests Joseph's legal team believes they have more evidence that hasn't been made public yet. There are several major questions that remain unanswered in this case. First, who is Stone F?
And according to the complaint, there was this intrusion at his Las Vegas hotel room. He came back to his hotel, he says, and found that there was no forced entry, but that someone had entered the room and left a number of items there.
The person who signed the note found in Joseph's hotel room has never been identified. Is this person connected to Will Smith, to his management team, to someone else entirely? The lawsuit doesn't say, and no reporting has been able to explain this. Second, how did someone get into Joseph's room without forced entry? The lawsuit argues that only members of Smith's management team had access to the room keys, but hotel security systems can be complicated.
Let me ask y'all a
Was there
question.
another
It's not being
explanation? Third, why were those specific items left in the room?
You think this nigga
HIV
fighting for
medication
it, or
with
he
someone
giving it
else's
up?
name, hospital discharge
That's all I
paperwork
gotta
for an
ask.
unknown person, a beer bottle, wipes, a red backpack, and earring. The combination of these items is bizarre and unexplained. What was the purpose? Fourth, did the key really go missing? Joseph claims his bag with the room key was missing for several hours and was in a van used by cast and crew. Did someone use that key to access his room? The lawsuit implies this connection, but it's not proven. And fifth, what actually happened? Was
So for
this,
him to
as
get his
Joseph
stuff
claims,
back, what the
evidence
hell?
of a planned sexual encounter that he was never consulted about? Or was it, as Smith's team implies, a fabrication? These are questions that a trial might answer, or this case might settle before we ever know.
In the filing, Joseph claims the experience caused, quote, severe emotional distress, economic loss, reputational harm, and other damages. In response to the lawsuit, an attorney for Smith tells E! News in a statement January 2nd.
This lawsuit doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes at a particular moment for the Smith family. As many of you will remember, in March 2022, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock on live television at the Academy Awards after Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith. That incident has followed Smith ever since and continues to be referenced in coverage of this new lawsuit. Additionally, in late 2025, just before this lawsuit was filed, a separate lawsuit was filed against Jada Pinkett Smith. A former associate named Bilal Salam filed a $3 million lawsuit against her. The details of that case are separate from this one, but the timing means the Smith family is facing multiple legal challenges simultaneously.
Commands.
This lawsuit also arrives during ongoing conversations about power dynamics in the entertainment industry. As the source noted in their coverage, this case adds to ongoing conversations around power dynamics and accountability within the entertainment industry. Brian King Joseph appears to see himself as part of that larger conversation. In his Instagram video, he specifically addressed others who might be afraid to speak up about similar experiences. The public reaction to this lawsuit has been mixed. Most media coverage has been relatively neutral, presenting both sides of the story and noting that these are unproven allegations. But some celebrities have weighed in. Notably, 50 Cent, who has had a complicated history with various celebrities over the years, posted on Instagram on January 2nd, 2026. His comment was, quote, WTF is going on. I got a movie I want Will for. This fool just mad he got fired.
And according to the complaint, there was a letter, a handwritten letter that was written that said, Brian, I'll be back, just us, with a drawn heart, and it was signed by someone who identified as Stone F. There were also wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, a bottle of HIV medication with another person's name on it.
That's a dismissive take on the allegations, essentially suggesting Joseph is just a disgruntled former employee. On the other side, Joseph has received support from his fans. On January 2nd, 2026, he posted on his Instagram story saying, quote, the support means a lot, you guys, thank you, with praying hands and heart emojis. As of January 2nd, 2026, this case is in its absolute earliest stages. The lawsuit was only filed 3 days ago. Here's what has happened so far. The complaint was filed on December 30th, 2025. Will Smith's attorney issued a public denial on January 1st, 2026, and the case has received widespread media coverage. Here's what has not happened yet. The defendants have not been formally served with the lawsuit. No formal answer or response has been filed by the defendants. No motions have been filed. No court dates or hearings have been scheduled.
Okay.
No settlement discussions or mediation have been announced. No
So right
judicial
now they just looking at the
rulings
shit.
have been made on any matters.
Okay.
And no criminal charges have been filed.
He just got it.
What happens next? Under California law, once the defendants are formally served, they typically have 30 days to file a formal response or answer. The defense may choose to file motions to dismiss the case. If the case proceeds past that stage, it would enter the discovery phase where both sides exchange evidence.
Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and to ensure that the truth is brought to light.
There's also potential for settlement discussions at any stage of this process. It could be months or even years before this case is resolved, if it ever goes to trial at all. Many civil cases settle out of court before reaching that stage.
I don't know.
Let me be clear
You think he
about
gonna do
what
that?
we actually know versus what is alleged.
That's kind of wild.
What we know for certain. Brian King Joseph was hired to work on Will Smith's tour in late 2024. He was terminated in approximately March 2025.
They be trying to end
He filed
niggas.
a lawsuit on December 30th, 2025, alleging sexual harassment, retaliation, and wrongful termination. Will Smith's attorney has categorically denied all allegations. What is alleged but not proven? That Will Smith engaged in grooming behavior toward Joseph. That someone entered Joseph's hotel room and left sexually suggestive items. That Joseph was fired in retaliation for reporting the hotel
Okay,
incident.
so that's why he
That
blamed
there
Will
was
Smith,
any
'cause he got
intent to
fired.
sexually exploit Joseph.
Damn.
What remains unexplained?
The hell?
The identity of Stone F, how someone allegedly gained access to Joseph's room, the meaning of the items allegedly found there, the full truth of what happened. This is a case that raises more questions than it answers at this stage. A talented musician who was on the cusp of what could have been a career-defining opportunity says he was targeted, harassed, and then fired when he reported it. A legendary entertainer says the allegations are false, baseless, and reckless. The legal process will now take over. Evidence will be presented, depositions will be taken, and eventually either a settlement will be reached, the case will be dismissed, or a jury will decide who's telling the truth. For Brian King Joseph, filing this lawsuit means putting his reputation and career on the line.
Yeah, most definitely.
If his allegations are proven false, the consequences
Well, not
could be
even
severe.
proven false.
But
if it's
he
proven
appears committed
right,
to
he's
his
definitely
account of
fucked
what
over,
happened,
'cause, you know,
telling his followers that
y'all know
reporting
how that shit
sexual
works around
misconduct
this bitch. They
or
be
safety threats
on
at
fuck
work
shit, nigga.
should never result in being fired, blamed, or shamed. For Will Smith, this is another challenge to navigate in what has been a turbulent few years. His attorney's emphatic denial suggests they're prepared to fight these allegations vigorously. What we can say for certain is that this story isn't over. The legal process is just beginning, and as Joseph's attorney noted, there may be information that comes out during litigation that we don't know yet. I'll continue to follow this case as it develops, and if there are significant updates, you'll hear about them.
Like an action star.
What do you think about this case? Do you have questions I didn't address? Let me know
Like
in the
an
comments
action
below.
star.
And if you found this video informative, please consider subscribing. We cover stories like this with
Will Smith with the whammy woo wop 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 wop. That's tough, man. I be trying to tell niggas, man, they be looking for blood around this bitch. That's a fact.
In the last few weeks, since It's a bombshell sexual harassment and retaliation lawsuit was filed against Will Smith by a professional violinist. The actor and musician has been so quiet. Well, sort of. He's been posting a lot about his life, but has remained very tight-lipped about the allegations that he now faces. Although I will tell you, a court docket may have just given us a clue as to what's going on. Let's get into it. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. What are you doing? Is there anything he should not be doing, should be doing? And also about the allegations in the complaint. But first, I got to talk about what Smith has been up to. So after we talked about this, after we talked about the complaint was first filed, and again, we're going to get into it, after the 57-year-old was sued by a professional violinist who appeared on Smith's tour in this bombshell sexual harassment and retaliation lawsuit, he hasn't really laid low. I mean, since the lawsuit was filed at the beginning of the month, if you go on Will Smith's Instagram, he's posting pictures and videos
he got this whole shit going on.
Appearing on Jimmy Fallon, wishing his former collaborator Jazzy Jeff a happy birthday. He's been heavily promoting his new National Geographic travel show, Pole to Pole, on Disney Plus.
That's when the first shit happens.
But nothing about Brian King Joseph or the complaint that was filed in California State Court. Now, we did see something. So we went on the court docket, and there appear to be filings for proof of service indicating, right, that somebody was served with a complaint in this case. It looks like the corporate defendant, and we'll talk about who that is, maybe has been served. But as far as we could tell, I didn't see definitive confirmation that Will Smith, in his individual capacity, as an individual defendant, had been served. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but just something to keep in mind about how this is progressing. Now, before I get into the merits of the case and how,
don't it be like, if you don't get served, it don't matter?
I'm going to quickly lay out for you what we're talking about here. So Brian King Joseph, that is the plaintiff. This is the former contestant on season 13 of America's
The idea that
Will Smith, and also this corporate defendant, I mentioned it before, this management company associated with Smith, Trayball Studios Management.
Earlier this year, I was hired to
be
a performer on a major tour with somebody who is huge in the industry. So I was excited, proud of myself for getting the opportunity. Unfortunately, some things happened, and I can't get into the details of exactly what that was because it's already a legal issue right now. But the reason why I'm speaking out about this is because getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that simply for reporting sexual misconduct or safety threats at work is not okay.
Now, by the way, that was a video that he posted before this lawsuit was made public. And in that video, he didn't really get into who he was talking about or the legal claims. Again, this is before the filing was made public. But I will say, in an Instagram story that was posted after the lawsuit was filed, it read, "The support means a lot, you guys. Thank you," with prayer hands and heart emojis. So where's the lawsuit claim? Well, Joseph claims that around November 2024, he was contacted by Smith's people to come out to the actor's house for an introduction for potential recording opportunity. He goes there, he plays the violin for Smith, claims that Smith invited him to join him at a performance in San Diego, and then join his tour based on a true story, the 2025 tour. And he claims that he did in fact play at this San Diego show, which, by the way, he seemed to post a video of on Instagram. And this is of Smith coming on stage and seemingly introducing him. And in the caption it says, "Still pinching myself, 2 sold-out nights with the one and only Will Smith at the Observatory North Park," which, by the way, is in San Diego. This is back in December of 2024. Anyway, he claims that Smith wanted him to become more involved in the performances, that he was a valued member of the team, that he provided him more stage time, he invited him to play on Smith's tracks. And this is where Joseph claims that Smith said to him, quote, "You and I have such a special connection that I don't have with anyone else." And that apparently Smith made comments to that effect. Keep that in mind. So Joseph claims that in reliance, right, on going on this upcoming multi-month tour, he told Smith's people, look, I'm going to be buying all this music equipment, I'm going to be buying medication, other things, so he's shelling out a lot of money in reliance and coming on this tour. You fast forward to March of 2025, this is where Joseph claims that he joined Will Smith for the Las Vegas part of the tour, and that all the hotel rooms for him and the crew, they were booked by the defendants, and that no one besides the crew or hotel staff had access to his room. And this is when he claims that he believes someone came into his room on March 20th without his permission or without him knowing, and that hotel security say there were no signs of forced entry. The only people, according to him, who would have been in there were supposedly Smith's management team. Now, how does he know that somebody was in his room? The complaint reads, quote, the evidence included a handwritten note addressed to plaintiff by name, which read, Brian, I'll be back no later 5:30, just us, and a drawn heart, Stone F. Among the remaining belongings were wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, a bottle of HIV medication with another individual's name, an earring, and hospital discharge paperwork belonging to a person unbeknownst to plaintiff. Plaintiff feared that an unknown individual would soon return to his room to engage in sexual acts with plaintiff. So Joseph claims that he immediately notified security and Smith's representatives about what had happened, that he, quote, obtained photo documentation, changed rooms, called the non-emergency police line as well, and then after all that, this is the main argument of his complaint. He claims he was then blamed and that he was let go of this tour by the tour manager, Tim Miller. And says, quote, when plaintiff requested for further reasoning, Tim Miller, acting on behalf of defendants, redirected the blame for the termination onto plaintiff, saying, I don't know, you tell me, because everyone is telling me that what happened to you is a lie, nothing happened, and you made the whole thing up, so tell me, why did you lie and make this up? Now, in the complaint, Joseph alleges that he was shocked by this accusation, and that he submitted evidence and a timeline, but, quote, defendant never made any effort to verify if the safety concern was true or not. One call to the hotel security would have been sufficient. Instead, defendant was intent on firing plaintiff because he reported the attempted sexual assault. Miller also indicated in person and via email that the tour was, quote, moving in a different direction, which was part of the reason for plaintiff's termination. However, following plaintiff's reported termination, defendant hired another violinist to assume the same position on the tour. This hiring strongly suggested the defendant's stated reason for the termination was pretextual. And from there, the complaint reads, plaintiff further pleads on information and belief. The defendant's conduct goes beyond a mere failure to protect an employee's safety or a dispute over a claim. The facts strongly suggest that defendant Willard Carroll Smith II was deliberately grooming and priming Mr. Joseph for further sexual exploitation. The sequence of events, Smith's prior statements to plaintiff, and the circumstances of the hotel intrusion all point to a pattern of predatory behavior rather than an isolated incident. Defendant's actions caused plaintiff severe emotional distress, economic loss, reputational harm, and other damages. Plaintiff was also harmed as a result of the stress of losing his job. His health deteriorated, causing major physiological damage. Plaintiff suffered from PTSD and other mental illness as a result of the termination, and he is suing for multiple claims and causes of action here. Retaliation under California law, retaliation under the labor code, retaliatory termination in violation of public policy. Basically here, that you're fired for reporting sexual harassment or workplace safety, that this is protected activity. There's also a
that's what I'm trying to tell niggas, man.
claim.
You can't
This
be
is a right
dying
to
on
sue
here all
if you
these different
believe
type of
that your
colors
rights under the
24/7
Constitution
not gonna
or
try
California
you.
law have been interfered with, and
They
that the
try
defendants,
gangsta
this is
niggas.
what is
You
claimed
think they
here,
don't try no niggas
threatened,
got rainbow hair?
intimidated, and or coerced plaintiff by terminating him
The
and
hell?
falsely saying they were just moving in a different direction and replaced him. There is a Ralph Act violation claim, so this is where it protects people from violence or threats because of sex or sexual orientation. The claim here is the alleged intrusion into his room was a violent act or threat or intimidation of a sexual nature. Quote, the circumstances, including the personal nature of the items left behind, the note addressed to plaintiff, and prior statements by Smith to plaintiff, such as, you and I have such a special connection, support the inference that plaintiff believed that the substantial motivating reason for the unlawful entry and related conduct was plaintiff's sex and or sexual orientation.
Damn.
Entry
Niggas
and
had
related
the 80
conduct was
waiting
plaintiff's
pills.
sex
It's
and
insane,
or
nigga.
sexual orientation. There's also a claim for sexual harassment in violation of the California Fair Employment and Housing Act, which essentially protects employees from harassment or discrimination. It goes on to say that the government code makes it illegal for an employer or any other person because of sex to harass an employee. Further states, an employer may also be responsible for the acts of non-employees with respect to harassment of employees. And here, Joseph claims that he was employed by the defendants, that he was working out of California for preparing for the tour. So that's why California law violation and California jurisdiction, that someone broke into his room while on tour for the defendants or the course of employment, and that a note was left with the intent to engage in sex acts. A note left in his hotel room, a room that was assigned and arranged for by his employers, the defendants, and that they didn't do anything about it after Joseph reported it and he was fired for it. So throughout the complaint, Joseph discusses the harm that he suffered and the damages, and I went through that as well. Now, before I bring on Imran Ansari, celebrity defense attorney, to talk about this, we actually sat down with Brian Joseph's attorney, Jonathan Delshad, in our previous episode of Sidebar. Here is part of what he had to say when I asked him to explain to me how this really connects back to Will Smith.
I don't want to get ahead of my skis here because, again, we haven't done discovery. We don't know
then you got
what the facts are going to bear out.
That nigga said he ain't playing no games, nigga.
Again, the allegations here so far, I think the main allegations in our complaint are that it's some type of retaliation for reporting sexual harassment. So that's the main thrust of the arguments here. Again, what was written on the note that was allegedly written on the note. Everything I'm going to say is allegedly because it's all, of course, based off of the complaint, information, and belief at this point in time. You're spot on, by the way. That's the critical question in this, in tying it back, meaning can we tie that back to Will Smith? But I think that there's a second option as well. That's just for the sexual harassment part of it. For the reporting, clearly it got back to Will Smith. I mean, the reporting was reported to the tour manager, the right-hand man.
And Tim Miller, by the way? Is that Tim Miller? Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so that, that's, I assume you're not asking about that, about the retaliation for the reporting. I'm assuming you're asking about, did he know that was in there? And then the question becomes, why is he retaliating for reporting? And that's a critical question here.
I just want to go back to Will Smith for a second. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was one comment that was listed in the complaint, and this is an overarching claim of sexual harassment. To be clear, is your client alleging that Will Smith ever sexually harassed him or propositioned him in any way?
I don't think that's not the claim that's being made in our complaint right now.
100%, but the comment that Will Smith allegedly made to him was put there for a reason. No, it was that comment that he allegedly made, and I believe there was in reference to other unidentified comments that would give him rise to believe that whatever was left in his hotel room went to this claim of sexual harassment in a way.
I think that remains to be seen. I don't want to get ahead of my skis on that. Those are facts that are going to come out in discovery. And you're asking me to kind of hypothesize on what may have happened in this case. And again, as an attorney, our job is to advocate for our clients, to figure out the facts. At this point, the only side of the story I know is from what my client tells me.
Sure.
We want to do the discovery. We want to get into the weeds of this case. We want to figure out exactly what happened, who was involved in this, and there's ways that we can figure that stuff out.
Now, I'm also going to tell you that Smith's attorney, Alan B. Grodsky, said at the time of this lawsuit being filed, quote, Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and to ensure that the truth is brought to light. All right, so now I want to bring on acclaimed attorney, litigator to the stars, celebrity attorney Imran Ansari. He's represented L.A. Reid, 50 Cent, Harvey Weinstein, Russell Simmons. Thank you so much for coming on, Imran. It's been a minute. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jesse.
First, let me start with what Will Smith has been doing since the lawsuit was filed. I mentioned at the beginning, he's been very active on social media, has been promoting his new show, he's been traveling, he's been with family, very silent on the case. I'm not surprised by that, hasn't made any mention of it, but for somebody who has been hit with a bombshell lawsuit like this, very public lawsuit like this, what do you make of him being so public and just living out his life?
Yeah, Jesse, listen, if he was my client and he was looking for advice of, how do I react to this on a PR aspect, on the public aspect, I'd probably tell him, like, listen, Will, you just want to be silent, go about your business, really put on a public image that this doesn't bother you because you have nothing to fear, right? That these are allegations that we are going to fight in court, we're going to defend against, and possibly even knock out before it gets to discovery with a motion to dismiss. So that would be some of the advice I would be giving Will Smith at this point. And likely he got that advice from his attorney, and he's just going about business as usual when he has these other things happening in his career.
And do you think it's also because of the actual allegations he's facing? If somebody would look at the headlines and be like, oh my gosh, what did Will Smith do? But when you read through it, and I talked about it with the attorney who's representing the plaintiff in this case, it's not like necessarily Will Smith is accused of sexually assaulting or harassing the plaintiff and a quid pro quo scheme or anything like we've seen in recent history. I'll be straight up, I kind of questioned the attorney about it. I was like, show me the connective tissue back to Will Smith. And I gotta tell you, it didn't feel that clear. I mean, I get it. I understand it from a legal point of view. I understand it. But I think from an everyday observer, they might not be able to make that connection per se. And I wonder if that's the case. Maybe you see it, I see it the wrong way. But I also wonder if that might be dictating why Will Smith is just living out his life.
I think Will Smith is living out his life because,
like, preparation coming on with you, I went back and I saw and I viewed your interview with that attorney, and I love that you used the connective tissue reference again, because I enjoyed that in your interview with him, and that's that, right? There's a connection. So they place Will Smith in this complaint. It's going to have that sort of shock value. It's going to be something that they could put out there in terms of the publicity around the complaint. Ultimately, in court, are you going to be able to prove any real wrongdoing by Will Smith? And importantly, Jesse, that connective tissue. Are you going to be able to connect Will Smith and his alleged actions, and it's sort of thin here in that complaint, with any harm that this plaintiff actually experienced because of his allegations, right? So I don't think they're going to get there. This is my opinion, Jesse. I'm reading that complaint. I see the allegation against Will Smith as an individual, that comment that he made allegedly about having a connection. But I don't know, and I don't think, again, my opinion, that rises to the level of any liability. And in your interview with,
because the counterargument would be, it's Will Smith. Everybody's working for him. He's in charge of this tour. He allegedly made a comment that could be taken either way. They seem to be suggesting it's one of many comments. And Joseph gets fired, and he believes he wasn't fired really because of any reason other than he reported this alleged instance of sexual harassment, potential sexual assault, because they hired another violinist, and that Will Smith had to have known about this, that Will Smith was behind it, and they couple it with the, potentially odd comments that he made. That, again, is how they're connecting it.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't think that really is going to pass muster in court. It's early, it remains to be seen, but if you're going to file a complaint and allege individual liability like they have against Will Smith, they have that one comment, which arguably could have been completely innocuous, nothing sexually charged, just something like, all right, you're coming on this tour, you're going to be playing music, and I feel like I have a connection with you. He may have said that with other musicians in the past, but what is the liability against Will Smith? If you're going to have these comments and you allege and reference other comments, but you don't put that in the complaint, that raises question marks. But the connection, right? Like, for individual liability here, I don't think that they're going to be able to show that. And when I listened to the interview with the attorney, he talked about upon information and belief, and of course all these things that may be beefed up during this discovery, but you have to pass go to get there. And I expect that we would see a motion to dismiss coming out from the defendant's camp against his particular complaint, especially against the allegations and bringing in Will Smith as an individual.
That's a good point, and I want to be clear about that. So you don't have to include everything in your initial complaint, but it has to meet a certain threshold for the lawsuit to keep on going, right? That was something that I seemed to try to be asking him, and he's like, we'll learn more about this during the course of discovery. Did you feel that the complaint was relatively bare bones at this point against either of the defendants?
Yeah, Jesse, I personally think so, right? Because, and you have all those causes of action under the California law, statutory law, regarding retaliation. And there's the allegation there, right? And of course, a pleading, complaint in the civil arena, you just have to make out the allegations enough to get into the courtroom. But there are certain aspects of claims like this that I think on this particular complaint, especially against Will Smith individually, that this individual, the plaintiff, may have a difficult time having that claim survive based on solely what we see in this complaint. Of course, then you go into discovery, but if I was in the defense camp, I would certainly be mulling over a motion to dismiss based on the sufficiency of that complaint and whether it really makes out a allegation, proximate cause of harm leading back to Will Smith individually. Now, the corporation's another thing, if he's going to be able to allege retaliatory firing, but I expect that they're going to come in with their defense, and we really don't know what the defense standpoint is at this point from a firing standpoint or retaliation standpoint. And I'm sure they're going to say, listen, there was other reasons to terminate this individual, and it was not pretextual.
If
I
he
mean,
can
if he got proof
that he goes into his room and there's a note there,
I wonder
and
if
it's
he
got
kept
all
the
that stuff there,
stuff
and
what
he didn't do it.
that
And
was
he,
left.
it wasn't like
The
somebody he
dude.
knew was in there and he just walks in. If he can prove that, if he's got the note, if
Yeah.
he has surveillance footage,
I mean, but shit,
if he
you
has
feel me?
reports that he, you know, to hotel
That's some
security and
goofy ass shit. I
police,
don't
if
know.
he can prove that aspect of the case, how much does that change everything?
But they still can't prove that's
So
Will
if
Smith
he's able
though.
to prove that, and again, you know, you can't be speculative.
That still don't prove that that's Will Smith
any of
because
this, right? You have
nigga,
to really
anybody,
have
it just tells us
concrete
that
evidence
only one
and then
person can
link it
like
back
go
to
into
some
the
sort of
room.
theory of
Don't mean
liability,
that Will
Jesse,
Smith
against
went into
these
the room.
defendants. If he's able to show that, I still have that question.
Nigga, you
right?
know what I mean?
And again, I don't mean to be piling on the plaintiff
Airbnbs and
here.
all
I'm
this
just
goofy shit, like
analyzing
niggas
this
having
from what I
hidden
see
cameras and
in the
secret
complaint there.
passages into
I
people's
still
houses
think that
and
there's
shit.
going to be a difficult time tagging the
We just can't
defendants
say it's Will
with any
Smith
sort of
for shit.
liability because of what happened
It could be
allegedly
anybody.
in the hotel room with the note and the items being left there and the suggested sort of comments in that note. But did the defendants know or should have known that something like this would happen? Did they have a duty somehow to safeguard that hotel room? And is there any connection whatsoever? Let's say an individual went into the hotel room
sometimes
and
people
did
don't be on
that.
their
Is there any
P's
connection
and Q's
whatsoever between that
24/7. You know what I'm
individual
saying?
and the
Hey,
defendants named in this
goofy
case?
shit.
Maybe they're going to be able to prove that and bring out evidence. But from the complaint, I still feel like those dots, there's a line that needs to be connected that's not there.
Is it illegal for him to be fired because he reported this? Is it illegal? Because they could easily
I don't
make the
think that's.
argument, yeah, we went with somebody else.
See, like somebody try to play
what he seems to be
your ass,
relying
they
on is the
fire you.
fact that they
That's
didn't,
wild.
you know, they hired another violinist, according to him. And I
You
wonder,
know, that bitch for like
you know, if
15 years
he
or some
can
shit.
really show that I was fired. I mean, the timing of this, guys, I'm fired right after I report this. You put two and two
Man, if
together.
it's like a company, I
Talk
think
to
you
me
can sue
about
the
that.
company, and the company probably got to
Sure.
like
If he is able to
reprimand
prove,
you.
right, that there was a retaliatory termination, that he went forward with these allegations, that he said that he felt unsafe, that he felt that there was some sort of sexual harassment that was in existence here, and that complaint was the basis of his termination. If he's able to connect those dots and lead it back to the defendants, then certainly he may have a case for retaliation, right? And when you look at this complaint, and when you interviewed the attorney, right, he was actually suggesting that this is not a sexual harassment claim per se against Will Smith, right? And that's important to note, right? It's really a retaliatory firing case at the heart, the meat and potatoes of this case. And if he's able to show that there was some sort of retaliation for him speaking out about this, then he may have a case, an arguable case against the defendants. But I am sure that there's going to be another side to this story, and we're going to perhaps wait to see the motions that are being filed or may be filed in response to this complaint, or certainly during discovery if it passes the pleading stage.
I want to go back to something I mentioned at the top of the show. We looked through the court documents. I could be wrong, but it appears there's proof of service filings with respect to the management company that's been named as a defendant. We couldn't necessarily see it with respect to Will Smith. Would that mean that he hasn't been served with the complaint? And
also, the management company got hit, or Will Smith didn't get hit?
So, Jesse, what I would, just based on what you're telling me now, I would imagine, and we have a comment, right? We have a statement from his attorney that his attorney accepted service on behalf of Will Smith of the complaint. And that way there's no fanfare with some, a process server if they can't get to Will Smith's house because of gates or he's not there. That there's a process server waiting in ambush for Will Smith at some public event to serve him with that complaint and papers, which of course is very, dramatic. And typically when you have a public figure as a client, a celebrity, and at some point they're going to be able to serve this your client with a complaint. You'll reach out to the other side. You'll say, listen, I'll accept service on behalf of my client. We don't have to have any sort of public service, or any issue, or you don't have to ambush him on a red carpet.
So he got a attorney just
I'll
for this.
accept service, and let's talk about a reasonable time to respond to this complaint. So I would imagine that's what's happened here. They've served the corporate entity, but Will Smith, his attorney, most likely, again, I'm speculating, but most likely reached out to the plaintiff's attorneys. I'll take service. It's time to respond.
If this progresses, so if it survives a motion to dismiss, it goes forward. If this is based on these allegations, if Will Smith were to settle, would people view that as an admission of guilt?
That look kind of wild.
Ellen Whataburger of guilt.
That's really tricky. Jesse, when you have these sort of cases, with someone who is a public figure, a celebrity, someone who is in the public eye. When you settle a case, if it's a decision to settle the case, sometimes the public will look at that as some sort of admission of liability. So people who don't understand the difference between the civil and criminal stuff will say, "Oh, he's guilty. He must be guilty. He settled the case." But Jesse, that's not always the case, right? You know, there's sometimes a business decision being made on the defendant's side, saying, "Am I going to go through the expense, time, and arduous process of trying this case against this individual, or am I going to say, listen, I just want this? I deny the claim. I think the claim is BS, and I just want to move on with my life and my business." All right. In those circumstances, there's sometimes behind the closed doors, attorneys are talking, and a settlement is had. Sometimes there's not even money exchanged in these settlements, and there are statements that are put out there. But you can't just assume always that the person who is settling the case is automatically at fault or admitting wrongdoing, because sometimes, especially with these celebrities and public figures, they'd rather not have the scrutiny of litigation and discovery into not just the claims that this person is making, but even potentially in other areas of their life. And they'll rather just resolve the case and move on.
Imran, I'm sorry. Let's see where this goes. Love to continue the conversation as this case potentially progresses, but really appreciate you taking the time. Don't be a stranger.
Nigga ain't got time for this bullshit. But I'm glad this nigga didn't get.
It's not nice. Forget all about us, Imran.
Dumb happened.
Let me know, and I'm always going to be making time for you.
All right, gang.
And that's what we have for you right now.
All right, we back. So we know people be lying. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know 100% if the dude telling the truth. If Will Smith got anything to do with it, you know, we don't know nothing. The only thing I want to say, man, is like, if you ever get put in a comfort situation, man, just walk away. You know, like, this fame, the money on the forces, if it's meant to be, it's gonna happen. You don't need to force shit, do go shit against your uncomfortability, or not uncomfortability, but like, you feel me, like morals and shit like that, because just because you don't get the big and all that shit and the glitz and glamour don't mean that, bro, God got a better place for you in any type of way. You don't have to go crazy, but to each their own. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, goofy shit can go down at any moment. And we out this bitch. Hood and outside. Big crip and gang outside shit, man.
Hey, Dad, you know, dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. You know this instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.